The Devante Parker Michael Thomas beef might be a little bit deeper than you guys know. And if you don't know about the beef at all, well, I'm here to inform you. Okay, so first thing is first, a big shout out to everybody that's Noti Gang, and if you're not Noti Gang, be sure to subscribe and become Noti Gang right now. I'm sure a lot of you guys have been wondering where the uploads have been. In case you guys don't know, I run 2 other channels and I also stream. One of those channels is a Madden channel, the other is an NBA channel. Both of those links will be in the description below along with my stream link. So with the NBA slowing down on news, I'm going to continue to bring you guys insanely epic videos. But I'm going to start focusing on this channel a lot more. I'm going to guarantee you guys one banger upload every Sunday. Football Sunday's not here, so no problem. Red Zone is here to step in. I've already got videos on Randy Moss and Jameis Winston in the works. So let's talk about the New Orleans Saints and Michael Thomas this past season. The Saints in the regular season were wildly successful. Drew Brees was an MVP candidate for stretches of the year, and Michael Thomas, well, he did what Michael Thomas does. He continued to wow the entire NFL. He broke record after record, and he cemented his place as one of the best Saints receivers of all time. Hey, somebody remind me, how long has this guy been in the league again? While you may hate Michael Thomas, you cannot argue with his production. His Twitter handle, Can't Guard Mike, is surprisingly nothing but facts. People thought Michael Thomas was a product of Drew Brees. Brees goes down, and Michael Thomas steps up in the biggest of ways, providing a security blanket and a big play threat for Teddy Bridgewater. I know what you're thinking, big play threat, Michael Thomas, but surprisingly, he has an abnormal amount of big gains, or more so, big plays. Despite not being the fastest receiver on the field, he makes up for it with his quickness, his savvy route running, and his yards after the catch. Look, to make a long story short, Michael Thomas is a flat-out beast. And the Saints, their season was a W if you discount the playoffs and the tragic loss. A style of loss that has become all too familiar for us Saints fans. Now, on the other side of things, you have Devante Parker, a receiver who has somewhat not played with the best quarterback options over the years. But quarterback options aren't the only thing that Parker has struggled with. He's become a player that has struggled heavily with consistency. Despite having all of the talent in the world, he might not always show it. And I know I'm in the minority, but I think some of the Dolphins' quarterback options over the years have actually been pretty decent. Hey, you could say it's a stretch, but I would look more at the coaching and the systems that have been in place. I would even go as far to say that in the past, Miami has had some very talented teams, but the record they have might not always show for it. Anyways, let's touch back to Devante Parker. He's 27 and he's coming off of a really good season. 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 72 receptions. It's no Michael Thomas season, but hey, I mean, there's only been so many of those in the history of the NFL, right? And again, I know it was a record-breaking season for Michael Thomas. So I know what you guys are thinking. How did we get to this point where Michael Thomas and Devante Parker are beefing? In fact, the beef is not over a rankings list. It's not over being included in the top 5 or anything like that. Hey, look, I'm a Saints fan. I know Michael Thomas has the ability to pop off at any given time on the field and while running his mouth. But I kind of like that Michael Thomas is somebody that is motivated intrinsically. He finds drive not only from himself, but from other people, be it small situations or big ones. Oh yeah, and he typically backs up his trash talk. So let's check out this Devante Parker beef. There's an IG post that has the caption, which is tougher, to make a catch while guarded by Stephon Gilmore or break up a pass while guarding Michael Thomas. Now, Stephon Gilmore, Defensive Player of the Year, Stephon Gilmore is an incredibly tough cornerback to get a reception against. But it just so happens that Devante Parker had one of his best games against the New England Patriots. Parker recorded 8 receptions for 137 yards. That's a lot of yards and a lot of receptions. You could argue that Devante Parker might have not struggled that game just by looking at the box score. But let's go more in depth on the situation. You could look at this a few different ways. One, Devante Parker was being legit, and he does think being covered by Stephon Gilmore is incredibly tough. Or you could look at it as maybe this was Devante Parker's way of kind of upping himself. Look, Devante Parker knows he had a good game against Stephon Gilmore. Stephon Gilmore was Defensive Player of the Year. If Devante Parker wants to be relevant, it's really easy. He comments on the post, boom. Now all of a sudden, people are talking about Devante Parker lighting up the Defensive Player of the Year. Even though Parker had no touchdowns, all in all, still a very good game against the Patriots defense. Devante Parker was targeted 11 times. He had 8 receptions. Again, it didn't really seem like he struggled. And honestly, I'm not sure this was a direct shot at Michael Thomas, but there is a chance that it could have been. Because you also have to take into account that Devante Parker has absolutely no chance to break up a pass while guarding Michael Thomas. The Saints sorely needed a number 2 receiver this season. I saw Michael Thomas double and triple covered a majority of the season. Making a pass breakup against Michael Thomas has to be one of the hardest feats in the entire league. And again, so is probably getting a reception against Gilmore, but Parker did that and he did very well. Does Parker have any chance of breaking up a pass against Michael Thomas? No, he doesn't, not in the slightest. But again, I have to assume he was talking about from a cornerback's perspective, a very good one at that. Hey, look, I'm just trying to see all sides of this thing. So again, Parker replies A, he thinks getting a catch against Stephon Gilmore is harder. Michael Thomas sees this and Michael Thomas takes complete exception. Thomas says, for you, yes, go run some numbers up, then you can talk. I lapped you and you've been in the league longer than me, first rounder. Devante Parker says, got some hard feelings there, brother? Let me get targeted 300 times a game. Mike replies, other words, you weak. They don't even put your name in the same sentence as me. Remember that. Then Mike says again, you still not going to do nothing. It took you 6 years and 17 weeks to have a good game. Don't blame your quarterback. Blame some other people. Was Michael Thomas wilding and did he take things a little too far? Yeah. Devante Parker says, quit crying. Mike Thomas says, you heard what I said. Devante says, I didn't hear anything, Playboy. Mike says, you can't even have a seat at the table. Truly, I don't think Parker wanted beef with Mike Thomas. That's just my perspective, but of course, I could never know. This is just my assumption. I think Parker may have been giving props to Gilmore, or he may have been trying to give himself some love. Over the years, Michael Thomas has caught a bunch of hate. Again, he is a guy that likes to speak his mind, and at times you can say too much, but I enjoy it and I think it's entertainment if nothing else. Thomas was so good this last year that if you remove all of the passes he caught on slants, he still leads the league in receptions and yards. So much for Mike only running one route. Shout out Nick Underhill for that stat. I'm interested in knowing who you guys feel won this beef and who was in the right and who was in the wrong, or were they both just completely in the wrong? Be sure to click the video on the screen right now, guys. It's incredibly dope. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. I'm D Coop and I'm out.